Hello and welcome to day 4 of Women's Health Week. My name is Shelley Ware and I'm an ambassador for Women's Health Week. Today's theme is all about mental and emotional wellbeing, and there is no doubt that 2020 has been a year of constant challenges. Joining me is psychologist and former Olympian Caroline Anderson, and we're going to chat about loss, letting go and coping with change. So welcome, Caroline. How are you?
Oh, good, thanks. And it's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me as part of Women's Health Week.
Oh, it's fantastic to have you along. So let's get into it. Caroline, why is it so often so hard for humans to cope with change?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, probably one that we don't think a lot about. I think there's so many reasons why humans find it hard to cope with change. I think we generally like being in our comfort zones, that we want to stay with what we know. If you think back to like kind of those caveman days, this would have helped our survival, so it kind of makes sense. We're definitely sort of hardwired to be scared of the unknown, and our brain really likes certainty. It's where it feels safe. So we have a primal need for safety and security, and also wanting to know how change will affect us, and yet something that we can't possibly know. So it can be really difficult. I think another thing is managing change requires energy. And I think, again, if you think about those evolutionary terms, we're kind of designed to sort of want to save and conserve energy. So that's why certainty and routine probably takes up a bit less energy for us. Some other factors are probably things like, as humans, we have this negativity bias. So we do sort of focus on the negative aspects of change. We probably fear that all the things, how we might be worse off when the change occurs, and also worry that we're not going to have the tools or the skills or the ability to cope with a new situation. So I think that they're all factors to keep in mind.
Yeah, I have to agree. I've heard those theories before, and they're not really theories. They're exactly what happens in the human mind, isn't it, of protecting ourselves. So can you give us some tips with coping with change?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing is just to acknowledge and normalize that, coping with change is a struggle for everyone. Like, it's a really universal challenge. And I think what's helpful is to think of building new ways of thinking that will allow us to accept and even embrace change, learning to shift our thinking about change itself. And that can be pretty challenging, but I think it's a good first step. So I think what else we can do is learn to be aware that the natural thing that's going to come up is want to focus on those threats to us, think about all our vulnerabilities as to why it will be hard, but shift our attention onto what are our strengths. What are the things that come natural to us that will actually help us through this time of challenge or change, and also looking at the opportunities that the change itself may bring. I think, a concept that's probably not talked about a lot, but is relatively new in the research, is a concept around post-traumatic growth. When there's, a crisis or a disaster of some sort, or a trauma, we often do think about, the pain and the suffering that people go through during that time. But what the new research just shows is that, yes, there are those things, but there can be also elements of growth through that. People who have been through an event like that often do report a sense of pride in how they coped, or a sense of growth, learning something new, or even the fact that it helped them really build strong connections. It doesn't mean that maybe we liked what happened, but there can be some areas of growth to come through that. I think some things that we can do is also remind ourselves that we as humans, although we don't like it, are actually really well equipped to handle change. We're very adaptable to our environment. And I think things that we can do are things like plan and create our own little sort of roadmap as how we're going to manage it. We can utilize our social supports. Obviously that's really important. And, in the current sort of circumstances, we're all adapting as to how we, do utilize our social supports. But it's one of the really sort of pivotal things and pillars of helping us get through and navigate through change. And I think the other thing I think is really important is, rather than focusing our energy and dwelling on the things that we can't change, we can really identify the things that are within our control. So the things, that are in our control are things like focusing on our health and well-being. Focusing on our well-being will really increase our ability to be resilient during times of change. focusing on things like relaxation, self-care, diet, sleep, exercise, all those things are really, really important and pretty foundational to navigating through change.
Beautiful. I love that. The social. I think that's what I do. I'm stubborn and I think I can't do that. I can't make that change. And then I call a friend and talk it out. And they're like, yes, you can, stubborn thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So important.
Friends are very, very helpful during this time. So what does letting go mean and how do we do it?
Yeah, it's a great question, really interesting. I think for me, letting go really means being brave to move forward, and it's really not easy. I guess, again, it's sort of accepting those things that we can't change, but also accepting, I think, the emotions that go along with it. And I think that's often the struggle, that's often the difficult bit. But letting go is a healthy way of moving forward in life. I guess there's kind of two components to it. It's probably letting go of the situation sometimes that it's outside of our control. And then the other component is letting go of the emotions that go along with that. And so we as psychologists call that emotional acceptance. And it really means opening up and making room for, sometimes painful, uncomfortable feelings and emotions, and learning how to sort of drop the struggle with them, giving them some breathing space, allowing them to be there. What we tend to do is fight those emotions, run from them, get overwhelmed by them. But what letting go means is really opening up to them and letting them be. Yeah, and I guess a metaphor for that would be, we can't stop the waves in the ocean, but I guess we have a choice as to how we respond to those waves. We can let them toss them about, or let them crash into us and have huge impacts, or maybe we can learn to ride them a bit like a surfer. That might be a way of describing what letting go can be like.
Yeah, I like that. Well, you've said that we don't really like it or agree with what's happening sometimes with change. But does it mean that we accept something as being okay when we let it go?
No, I don't think so. I think, the two often gets a bit confused sometimes, but I don't think we have to like something or agree with it in order to let it go. I think we have to be guided by our values, what truly matters to us. And certainly there are things at times that we don't want to let go of because they are really important to us. But sometimes holding on to something actually doesn't help us move towards what we really value in life. And I think being able to identify that is really important. So letting go doesn't mean liking it. It just means we're not going to struggle with it. An example would be if someone, hurts me, a natural response would be try to change what can be changed, and that we might try to talk it out or work through it. But sometimes that's not going, just doesn't change the situation. And I guess I can either hold on to that hurt, struggle with it, dwell on it, think about it. That takes up a lot of time and energy and certainly doesn't make me feel good. Or I can learn ways of letting it go. It doesn't mean I like what happened, but I can certainly learn to have a bit of distance or create some room with it. And I think, asking some questions around that can be really important, like, is holding on to this helpful for me? Is it helping me be the kind of person that I want to be? Is it, what kind of impact does holding on to it have? And if, I think that can kind of help us make that decision around, is it something that we can or need to let go of?
Yeah. And I find that it's a really good way to self-care. Once you have let it go, that's a real sense of relief within your body, and it does help you move forward, definitely. So what do we do when we're in a difficult situation that we just cannot change? Well, let's say like a global pandemic.
Yeah, something that we can all relate to, and many of our audience today knows exactly what that's like. But look, I think some of the basics again around, understanding it. Something like a global pandemic, it's a roller coaster of emotions. There are going to be highs, there are going to be lows. That's completely normal, and I think we need to anticipate and understand that as well. That it's not going to be smooth sailing. It's not going to be great all the time, but it's also not going to be terrible all the time. There will be moments of sunshine as well. So normalizing the fact that there will be a range of different emotions through it. I think staying connected with others is really important. As we've already mentioned, prioritizing our own mental, physical and emotional health is obviously really important. I think one that certainly has struck true for me is being really realistic with myself and the expectations about what's manageable during this time. I'm sure many people have kind of gone through that journey already in the early days. Maybe they had really high expectations of what they could do, and as time's gone on, they've learned that that's actually really not being realistic. Sometimes we need to change the goalposts a little bit, and that's okay. As I've already said, I think focusing on what you can control is really important. And some simple things like break down your day or set yourself small tasks to do to make sure that you can tick those boxes and giving yourself that sense of accomplishment or achievement, even over small things. Exercise is a great coping tool in life. It gives us those endorphins and helps us, feel good, and is important for our health. Sometimes even, thinking about the impact of media on us and, making sure that it's the level it's helpful for us. So sometimes limiting media exposure can be important for ourselves and our families. And again, I think, I'm sure many people, as this pandemic has gone on, people have already learnt this, but creating new routines and things that work for you as a family. And they're going to be different for everybody. It's not going to be the one rule or one size fits all. And it's finding what works for you. I think don't forget to create little moments or opportunities for fun, relaxation, and reminding yourself the things that you are grateful for. This is really aligned with our well-being, in life. Looking for opportunities of growth and learning. And the last one is, I think, don't forget that it is okay to seek help, whether that's with family and friends, whether that's from professionals. Don't wait, do ask for help, put your hand up. We know being proactive can make a huge difference, and getting support early can also make a huge difference. So that there's lots of options available. A good place to start is just seeing your GP or health professional for some advice, and not to be ashamed of asking for help. Change and big challenges in life are difficult, and it's okay to sometimes need a bit more support during that.
Yeah, it sure is. Reach out, because there's some beautiful people out there who want to support you. So what is the single most important thing, do you think, for each person watching today for them to cope with change?
Embrace and accept change, utilize social supports, stay connected to people. Oh, sorry, I can't keep it to one thing. There's not just one thing, a few things. And focus on your routine and the things that you can control is probably my takeaway tips from today. Yeah.
Love it. Thank you so much for joining us, Caroline, and sharing your knowledge with us. I'm sure that there are so many things that people can take away from today, and especially helping us during this difficult time of COVID. So please join us tomorrow for the 5th and final day of Women's Health Week. We'll be taking a look at your financial health and why it matters to your mental and physical health. So thank you very much, and all the best, Caroline. Take care.
Thanks so much for having me.
Pleasure.